Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm so excited today. I have actress Irene Bedard with me. So, welcome, Irene.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
So, my oldest, my daughter, was born in 1994. So, Pocahontas, big fan of that. That was like her. That was her movie. You know,
Mhm.
it's. I think every one of us, I think, has our favorite Disney movie. That was hers. That was hers.
Oh,
So she's been very excited the last couple of weeks. I was like, guess who I've got
aw.
number one?
My son was Finding Nemo. He watched that quite a
Oh,
lot.
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
keep
everybody
switching.
has. Do you have a favorite Disney movie?
Um, when I was growing up, I really loved Jodie Foster. So pretty much anything that Jodie Foster was in. And then I got to meet her at the Los Angeles premiere, and I was just like, oh, there she is.
Oh
And we're the
yeah.
same size.
She
size
was
tiny.
in a lot of Disney movies back then. We had a local drive-in and they would
Mhm.
show two Disney movies every weekend. So you get like the cartoon would be first and then, the regular movie. And she was in a bunch of them back then. I think it was what was the one I liked? Candlestick, I think was the name of it that she was
She
in.
did um not Parent Trap, the one where she switched with the mother.
Yeah. It was like
Yeah,
the Freaky Friday one.
yeah,
But I'm
Freaky
it
Friday.
was it called Freaky? I think it was. Yeah, that was.
I
There's been
think it
so
was.
many of them now. I'm like, what was the original called?
I know, and I'm always feeling so behind when well, just all the animation that's out in the world,
Yeah,
from Disney to anime, especially anime. So
yeah, yeah. There's so much now. It's because like back when you did Pocahontas, there hadn't the '80s there wasn't a ton of animation out there, but then in the '90s Disney started putting some of those back out, and Pocahontas was one of the early ones
one of the early ones,
that came
yeah.
out. Yeah, because there was Pocahontas and Aladdin, maybe The Lion King, maybe, but there was a few there that came out, through the '90s, and that kind of sparked all this. Now there's cartoons everywhere.
Yeah,
Pretty great. Yeah, it's pretty
I
great.
love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm a nerdy guy, so and there's something, especially with the Disney movies. If you've got children or grandchildren, you can still sit down and just watch those with them. They're so good and so well written.
I think, well, like with so much animation, what I began to notice as a grown person, um, there are a lot. There has to be, because we sit there and watch it too, but we also enjoy it. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of double entendres and
Yeah.
innuendos or political references in animation throughout history, from
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny on, and Disney, all of them.
Yeah. It keeps the adults interested because we usually end up having to watch them a ton.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and originally, I mean, when Disney started, when animation started, it would run, like, and also the news ran right before movies in the theaters. So
Yeah, that's
that
right.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Did you have a favorite movie when you were growing up? Because you were like a teenager in the '80s, like I was. So
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
there a movie that you kind of remember like that? '80s was a good movie time, I
It really was. And there, I mean, I was thinking about that recently with, that it was really indie um explosion. There were a
think.
lot of, like, Gus Van Sant and um uh, Jim Jarmusch. There were
Yeah,
just some amazing directors, Steven Soderbergh, who came out
yeah,
during that time. And it was really, it blew up in a lot of ways, because we had our kind of old studio system, and then our main three television plus PBS. And then when we were growing up in the 80s, we got we got cable. and out of cable, you know, the opportunities for more content happened. And then it went even further when we started doing all the Netflix and Hulus of the world. So we're just floating as far as a time to be a storyteller in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Do you remember when your family first got cable?
I do. We had moved from Washington State, where my father got his business degree, back to Alaska, and it was, let's see, 1980, I believe, and so that was our first time getting cable.
Back when there was only a couple channels extra that you got with cable, but HBO was
HBO. Well, then there was, you know, MTV, CNN, you know, and MTV, and MTV was actually music television.
It was really good back then.
I actually just recently got myself an MTV retro shirt because
very nice.
Feeling it. I was feeling it.
Yeah, well, it's like I think I saw it's like 25 years now. It's the 20? No, maybe it's 35. Because 25 would it's gotta be something. It's gotta be at least, or maybe it was 30. Maybe it was the 30 year. That would make sense.
Yeah.
40
I just
maybe. Oh my
the
gosh. How old is it?
25th anniversary of Pocahontas. So yeah, it has to be longer than that.
Yeah. And it's went by so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when, you know, my son's just beginning college and everything, and it seems like such a long time, 25 years, but it really does go in a blink of an eye, especially when
fast.
You have kids, because, you know, people say that to you and you have little ones and they're like, well, appreciate it because it goes by really fast.
It's true.
It does. Yes.
And like when you're in it, when they're young, it's so slow. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. But then next thing you know, they're grown up.
Yeah, you're covered in little socks and yogurt kisses and
all the best stuff.
Yeah.
Grandparenting is pretty awesome too. So we've got 4 grandkids, but they're all 2.5 and younger. So it's been fairly recent.
My youngest brother is 10 years younger than I am, and so when when I was 12 and he was 2, I would walk around and, you know, people say, oh, you know, is this your baby? And I would just say yes. So he's my baby, and my baby just had a baby. He's you know, little a couple of years old now.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. You'll be the
so that's
the fun aunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I jumped ahead a little bit. So I usually like to start here. You know, what made you want to become an entertainer? You know, and how did you get into acting?
I was I was very shy. I mean, like very, like, look at the floor, look at the ceiling, you know, shy. That's still my baseline. And I think when being the oldest grandchild and the oldest child, I was always telling stories, creating stories. And then I started writing plays because I knew where they were. It's like, you know, he's going to enter stage left. You know, it's like, I knew where all my, you know, little cousins and siblings were. So I started writing plays, and I always did it, but it just, I mean, my first university, Mansfield University, I was studying physics and philosophy. I really didn't think of it. I think that, you know, it could be a career. I just loved doing it. Yeah. And I loved doing it because I got to really research into a time period or a place and this person that I'm, you know, getting to portray. You know, what is their life like? And it really, you know, helps you to explore what it means to be a human. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us get into it is loving telling stories
Yeah.
and exploring humankind and what and the human condition, what it means to be a human, and you know how we can create more empathy in the world, um, uh, or even at this point sympathy. Any you know
Right.
empathy is feels like a longer step for us, but we actually really do feel empathy. You know that's why we you know scream in the theater at Halloween, you know, movies, and because we you know we're invested in these characters,
Yeah,
these
right.
people, and we you know and we feel an empathy for them, and I think that the great um storytelling venue of film and television, we used to tell stories around a fire with our
Yeah.
family, and those stories were you know, taught us a lot about our place, the people who came before us, lessons that we might need to learn,
Right.
or catharsis, you know, like someone who really just goes through it, and, you know, we can go through it with them and feel like, you know, when life comes at us, maybe we can deal with those things as well. So I just always loved all those aspects of being a storyteller. And
Yeah, I love
it,
that.
yeah, I mean, on my halfway to 100 party, I made a mission and vision statement for myself, which was based on Dr. Louis Mel Madrona's book and work, the Healing the Mind Through the Power of Storytelling. Um, but my mission statement for myself, I've decided to make it a little easier, which was just healing
Yeah.
through the power and art of storytelling. Like, how can we, you know, build bridges to each other? How can we show someone what the suffering of someone else might have been so that we can have empathy, you know, those types of things. And so I feel like that leaves it wide open enough for theater, or actually telling stories, or documentaries, or
Yeah.
directing, or producing, all the things that I love doing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So when you were going through school growing up, did you do theater? Did you play in a band? Were you in chorus, anything like that?
Yeah, I was in the Anchorage Civic Opera. I did
Yeah.
productions with the Anchorage Community Theater and the repertory theater they had there. And I was in all the swing choir and all the school productions.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, I loved doing it, and part of it too is just I got to be someone else. You know,
Right.
if it were me up on stage, I'd be, you know, I would have been. I'm better at it now, I guess. A lot more shy. And when I did music, that was one thing that I didn't really think about or expect, and had to almost build or make a character of Irene on stage, because, you know, when you're on doing theater, there's that fourth wall, and
Right.
you know, you don't, you, the construct is that the audience doesn't exist in this world, right? But when you do music, it is all about engaging the audience and looking people in the eyes, and connecting with them,
Right.
and it was a lot scarier than I anticipated.
I completely get that because
Yeah,
at heart I'm an introvert, and
yeah,
that was, you know, when I had to, you know, speak in front of a group, or whatever it was, anything that involved interaction with people. That's kind of what you have to do. You almost have to make a little persona that you can play, to get through it. I did when I was.
I think we do that to a certain extent anyway. I mean, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a brother or sister, you know, I'm a teacher at times. You know, I think to a certain extent in life, we all, you know, we talk about like, oh, I'm going to put my producer hat on now or whatever. I mean, we all have the roles that, you know, that we play, and the icons that we can look to hopefully, look up to, that has, the road has been paved already, so.
Okay. That's pretty great. So what do you remember what your first paying acting role was?
I guess. Well, I don't paying acting role. So I was 5, and we
Oh,
did.
wow.
My father did a lot of work with the tribes of Alaska for the majority of his life there. That was what he was working toward. And apparently, a Japanese bubblegum company contacted the organization, one of the organizations he was working with, and they wanted to, in July, mind you, film Eskimo Yupik children, on the snow eating their bubble gum. And he volunteered my sister and I. Now she was 3, and it was July, so it was warm.
Oh, yeah.
And even though we were on the Portage Glacier, to make it look like we were in the Arctic, and we were wearing our parkas and mukluks and everything, she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't keep her parka on. But I did, and I got paid in bubble gum. I don't know if that counts.
That does count. That's
okay.
Actually pretty great. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Well, so talk a little bit about how that role with Disney came about. Because it's a little different. Voice acting is a little different than regular acting. How did you did you audition for that role, or did somebody approach you and say, I think you could do this?
This is like completely me after whatever number of years doing my own conjecture slash sleuth work about how did I get that role. My very first film was a Disney film, but it was live action. So I was already when you get in the Disney world, you're in the Disney world.
Once you're a Disney kid, you're a Disney kid.
So I was already on their radar. And the second film I filmed, I mean, I had gotten other films previous, but we would over schedule and other things. But I was in South Dakota filming Lakota Woman, which was produced by Jane Fonda. It wasn't, it was for TNT. But one of our producers, Hene Gigama, he is a Kiowa professor. He teaches at UCLA, American Indian Studies literature, and he is also a producer. He became an advisor as well on the Pocahontas project.
Right.
So I think that something must have hey, have you thought about auditioning her? So I think that's my sleuth work. I don't know if that's the actual truth of it.
Well,
but
it probably is. It probably is. And that's a lot of times that's how you get a job, is somebody knows somebody. And
and especially at that time in the voiceover world, it was very much of a well, they called it a big boys club, but it was very much, there was a set of voiceover actors basically, and that exploded with us film actors getting to do these things. And then now with the explosion of animation in general, I mean, so it's really it's opened up quite a lot, I think.
I've always heard, we've been lucky enough to have several voice actors on the show, and they all say that it's better now, but when they first start out, very difficult to get into, probably more difficult than regular acting because it was such a small kind of tight-knit group.
Yes. But I think that's changing across the board though today with all of the streaming content that's out there. It's so many places to go and find film, television projects, documentaries, that look at so many different aspects of humankind now. I'm so excited, at this kind of explosion that we're living through.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're such a terrific actress. I think I've always enjoyed watching you on screen, and your voice work is terrific too. But when you first got that role, when you first got your Pocahontas, did you have any idea that you would, kind of become, or you'd have such an association with that role? Because I mean, you've played her mother, on
Mhm.
film, and then you
Mhm.
voiced her. You were in the doing the voice in Wreck-It Ralph, the
Mhm.
sequel to that. I mean, I was kind of
The
curious about that.
parks and toys. I've done
Yes.
Disney park and toy voiceovers. I did. I actually was pretty cognizant of the fact that taking this role was going to be part of the Disney. I knew that being part of Disney already has a legacy to it.
Right.
Just that in itself. So I knew that there's nothing that could have prepared me for,
Well, yeah, of course.
100,000 people in Central Park at the world's largest premiere ever in the history of filmmaking.
Yeah.
That year also, I had been nominated for the Golden Globe for Lakota. I mean, it was just a year that, I went all over America and Europe and Asia, and
Yeah.
it was amazing. But like I said, there isn't really anything that can prepare a person for that.
Yeah.
Go down your 6th floor walk up in the East Village where you're like bunking with a band, right? To a police escort taking you through Manhattan so you can get to 100,000 people waiting for you.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. There's no way you could prepare for that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, because I loved you in Squanto, Into the West. You've done so many different roles where you've portrayed Native Americans. I mean, do you feel any extra pressure, obligation? What does that feel like? Do you feel like you need to portray in a certain way, or do you just kind of let the acting take you where it takes you? I don't know if I said
Well,
that right. Does that make sense?
right. I think I understand. I think that I mean I guess I understood from my very first film project that there was, I mean, and it's something that we're taught from our tribal elders anyway, where we go out into the world and we need to present ourselves in a good way and walk in a good way, and you know it was I remember saying at the time, like, first off, I just need to let everyone know I'm just a girl from Alaska and no one can speak for all Native Americans.
Right.
I mean,
That's right.
no one can, especially, but I do feel like at this point in my life, and having had been to most of the tribes in
Yeah.
North America, and working with the American Indian Enterprise and Business Council, and
Yeah.
I've been on multiple boards for and doing things for Indigenous people and with Indigenous people, and having the understanding as well, I guess, of well, I mean, most people, when they think Native American, I kind of have an idea in their head, a thought in their head. The thing is that needs to be wiped away, because it's like trying to say, I had a director who said to me once, in an audition, so let's hear some Native American. And I feel like I wish I would have said to him, well, can I hear some European? Because it's like, well, we have the Dene, we have Cree, we have, there's so 567, I've lost count to where we are
Right.
as federally recognized tribes, and nearly 300 are in Alaska alone. And the fact is it's such an exploration of beauty, and there are aspects of being Indigenous, and what the number one thing is the connection in deep time, the understanding, as Maya Angelou says, I am the love of 1,000 ancestors, and you are connected to those ancestors, and because of that, you are also an ancestor, and so you are connected to all of your descendants, and what you do today, affects generations down the line.
I like
and
that.
so a tribe, in my definition, has that deep time, that understanding, that relationship to the ancestors and the descendants, but also has a deep and abiding relationship to the earth and the creatures that live on it. I mean, I've heard Secretary Ban Ki-moon described that we are at the forefront of climate change, and
Right.
it's true. We've been saying for decades that we've noticed things that are changing, and that to lose these languages, and and a language is basically able to define your world. So basically, there's so much science,
Right.
and knowledge, natural knowledge, that dies when a language dies. So that's the other
Sure.
thing: a language, songs, and a drum. And you know what? We all came from tribes. We all had those things.
That's right.
And, the prevailing societies paved over it, and we just have to remember it. And, I think if that's what I feel like, telling stories that are Indigenous centered can offer in so many ways.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You did a much better job answering than I did of asking, but that was perfect. That was perfect. So I was really excited to see you show up on Longmire. I really love that show, and it was on for several years, but I thought your role on that really good. Enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. May Stillwater was in the books as well. So it was nice that the way that she was woven into the stories, mostly related to women, and continuing that conversation, and this was 5 years ago, before even the term, MMIW, the Murdered Missing Indigenous Men and Women and Children, was a hashtag, or
That's right.
that came out. But I feel like they the producers really wanted to explore the social deconstruction of the culture of American Indian people in that world. That it was told very well, I think.
Yes. Yeah, agree. I thought as such a well written show. It's kind of like a modern day Western, and there's not too many of those.
Yeah, I think we're finding different ways to tell our Westerns now, but I think it's still something that is just going to be a part of American filmmaking for a long time. I mean, you have to think about, oh my goodness, he's in his 90s. He just had a film out.
Clint Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood, yes, and his, he had 80 years of a career,
Yeah.
and many of those are Westerns, and the fact that even the project that he came out recently with still had that kind of old West feel.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, anytime he has a movie that comes out, I get my my dad, and we go and watch it together because he's a big.
Oh, that's great. Are you going to theaters? Are you going to the movie
Well,
theaters
so
again?
I haven't been much, but
Yeah.
recently I've been a couple of times, but it's only
Yeah.
been within the last month or so.
Well, here, and Regal is all over, but Regal, I don't know if they're still continuing with it, but you can do a monthly pass basically with
Oh,
them.
nice.
They're getting people to come back into the theaters, and
Yeah.
I love it because, on a certain day, it's like, well, let's just go to a matinee because we can.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's a big deal now because we didn't
Yeah.
realize we loved it so much till it was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was still pretty empty. Like I took my sons and we went a couple different times, and both times there may have been a couple other people in the theater, but it was pretty empty. I didn't think I would say that, but I kind of miss the full theater experience because there's just something about when an audience is reacting to a movie. It's just a better experience, I think.
And I think we're getting less and less of that. I was filming The Mist up in Nova Scotia,
Yes.
and I was there for some months. And they have the Tragically Hip, the Canadian kind of their Beatles, right?
Yeah.
Their lead singer knew that he was passing and decided to do a farewell concert, and the whole of Canada, I am talking, shutting down streets, sections of the city,
Amazing.
putting up screens randomly everywhere, dancing together. And I just thought to myself, man, I wish we could be more as cohesive about anything.
Yes.
And I think part of where we came into being cohesive had to do with a little bit of those times where we would get into a theater together, or we would go to a concert together.
Yeah.
We would have those experiences as a nation. I mean, like when MASH, the last episode of MASH,
Yeah, of course.
the whole America watched.
Everybody was watching that.
Yes. And I wish that there could be something in our world that could bring back some of our cohesion, because I feel like, I carry around a pocket constitution of the United States, and you wouldn't think that, but it's so eloquent, and there are so many parts of it that in this grand experiment, basically, that we're failing at. But guess what? The whole rest of the world, doesn't do well at a whole lot of things too.
Right. That's right.
But I think that, if we keep remembering and remembering, I really want to put that together, remembering, that, those, born to be free and equal kind of, or, e pluribus unum, out of many one. If we can remember some of the things that, the ideals that this country is based on, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, agreed. I miss the watch parties. Back then we like that when a show was ending, like MASH or Cheers, Seinfeld, some of the bigger shows, everybody would get together and you'd have those watch parties for the finale. We don't do that anymore. I miss that.
I in the semi-recent past have started going to Comic-Cons, and then, of course they shut down, and then they're starting up again. And I just love going to them because you see a community, like the people who didn't see each other since last year, but they do this con and they express joy and just get to be big kids for a day. And it brings that kind of sense of community that we need more, we need more local community experiences. We're separating ourselves with our fences and boxes so much that, we're losing sight of each other.
Yeah. I put myself through school. I owned a comic book store. That's how I did that. So I did just a ton of conventions growing up. And that was always the part that I absolutely loved, because you had this group of people that didn't know each other, but they would connect over, whatever it was, a comic book, a show, whatever, but just common ground. And it was just so positive. It was such a positive experience. And conventions are still like that now, but better, because now it's much more inclusive. You've got cosplayers. You've got a lot more women go to those now. You've got, it's Hollywood's involved in it now. But that feeling's still there. You still got this group of people that's getting together and just sharing things that they love. And we need more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you recently did a convention. How was that? Was everybody still masked up? Were they checking vaccination cards at the door, or was it pretty open?
We do event like the photo op things, where they hire a professional photographer and there's lights and everything, and generally we can go in and give a nice.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But they put a screen between us, and I always feel like, no.
Yeah. That's different.
So close, yet so far. But,
I would.
They're taking all the safety measures.
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to. We had Alicia Witt, who is a terrific actress, but she also plays piano and sings. And she came on the show, invited us to Columbus for her concert. So we went. First time we went. It's the first time we've been, to a show in a while. But they checked cards at the door. It was a very small venue, but she came around and talked to everybody before the show, and everybody's in masks. But then we were allowed to take off our mask, and she took off hers just for that split second when they took the picture.
Just for a picture, yeah.
But it's a little awkward, because normally if you're taking a picture of somebody, you might put your arms around each other or kind of stand shoulder to shoulder and stuff. But now you feel kind of awkward about it. So the pictures look just a little bit awkward, because everybody's trying to figure out what's the new normal, what's okay. Now, so you're trying to figure that out.
Well, and I think it's good in some ways, because it is forcing us to communicate with one another in a way like, what is comfortable for you, and this is what's comfortable for me. And I'm vaccinated. Are you vaccinated? So I think we can go ahead and take this picture together. It's like a new way that we're having to express, our concern for one another. And so I don't know. I think it's a good exercise. Just the same way I was when we really shut down, when like the world shut down. Remember that in 2020, and the dolphins came back in Italy, and the
right. It was like the earth was healing itself.
It made me think that what I think we should do is just once a year, we all just take a month off. We don't go anywhere.
I'm in.
And it'll heal the planet. So
that's not a terrible idea. I mean, it's not like we've come up with anything better. That worked.
Yeah, and we all did.
I mean, it's like
people still had to do some driving.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We have to play, but if we were prepared, like this caught us kind of off guard. But if we knew March, everybody's locked in March, you'd be more prepared to be locked in. Then it wouldn't be as bad. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Did you pick up a new skill while you were locked in?
Zoom.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't even know what Zoom was before all of this, but I've Zoomed my way through the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Zoom.
We were doing interviews. We did some by Skype, but we were doing them just on the phone, holding a microphone up to the phone. It was terrible. Zoom, so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. So you did you mentioned The Mist, but you were also in The Stand. You've done a couple of Stephen King shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with me, but I have things sort of come in threes. So I got The Mist, and then we did the first of a trilogy of movies called The Harbinger, and then I got The Stand. So I'm like, okay, maybe my horror, because my friends, they're like, Irene, how are you doing this? You can't even watch Halloween commercials. I'm always like, but it's the same. I actually was asked to do a horror panel, and I was kind of like, well, I don't know that I like, you probably have other people who have done way more than I have, and then I started really thinking about it though too, because you know, I literally was hung on one coast over and over and over again in a tree, on a set in a century, and then finished that hanging that day, flew out that next morning to get to my next set on the other side of the coast, set in a different set in modern times, where my first day was hanging in a tree. And you know, it occurred to me like, well, you know, in a lot of ways, I mean, I've lived through disease. I've told stories of the deconstruction through westward expansion of the Lakota people. I've experienced, gone through the experiences of the fate of many Native people, many Native women, that were horrific. And so maybe, you know, I've been telling the apocalypse of the Native American people, like in so many different ways, that maybe I already have been doing horror. It didn't really feel that different to me when I was actually filming it. So
that's funny. That's really good. So we've enjoyed you. You've done a lot of cartoon voice work. Like, you did an episode of this show called Pepper Ann that my daughter loved. And my son and I, we loved you as Gene in Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh,
you popped up in just kind of places that I wouldn't have expected you to be in. You did the Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers Chronicles.
Was
the first fully CGI animated series, as far as I know. I think
you're right.
Yeah. And I played a female Native American general fighting alien bugs in the future. So yeah,
that's pretty awesome. Oh, and Young Justice. You were in Young Justice as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My son, I don't even remember where the event was. I just know he was probably maybe 5 or 6, somewhere around that age. And somebody said again, like, oh, Pocahontas or something, and he's gonna not like that I'm telling this story. But he was like, he put his, did the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And just got this big giant thing on his face and said, my mom did Scooby-Doo too,
Yes, she did.
Well, that was his frame of reference, because I don't think he saw anything that I did on film until I think the first thing he asked to see, one of his friends wanted to see Smoke Signals. So yeah.
Oh yeah, Smoke Signals. That's kind of a cult classic.
Yeah, and I think they're about 11 or 12, so I felt like it was maybe a good one for them to watch, because it's about sons and father. Well, all of us at some point realize that our parents aren't the gods that we think that they are. Right. And at some point realize that we have to disconnect ourselves from them in a way, that detachment that we have to go through, and detaching. But I think really the thing that it speaks to is forgiveness, because we all at some point realize, like, they're just humans, and none of us are perfect, and we all make mistakes. And it was one of the first things I said to my son when he was born. I was like, I love you so much, but just so you know, mistakes will be made, and they have been made.
I think that's a good thing for every parent to say, because we do. We all try our best, but mistakes are made.
Well, and everything that comes with the child has, exorbitant amount of instructions, and this is how to assemble it, and but the child doesn't come with instructions.
No, he doesn't. So I know we got to wrap up. You were also on Johnny Quest. I'm a big Johnny Quest fan. Yeah, you did do that. Before we wrap up, I wanted to mention or ask you, did you do a video with Jay-Z?
I did, yes. Yeah.
I hadn't seen that, but I read that somewhere that you were in a music video.
I was out at Standing Rock. I'm special counsel for the Cities of Peace, and we were wanting to meet with the leaders of Standing Rock, their prayerful, powerful resistance, and how can we work on more, peaceful approaches to reality in general. And so, I'm in just another world also out there. It's, very spotty. And apparently they had been trying to reach me, and Ava DuVernay had the Untitled Ava DuVernay project, and I love her. And I said, okay, I'm going. I didn't even know what I was going for. And so I left, South Dakota to land in New York City. It was such a kind of real juxtaposition of my life, this completely traditional, very different kind of society and way of being, and then New York City, the two opposites of the coin in so many ways. And so when I arrived, I was told what it was for, and I met with Ava, and she said, here's the script, and you're playing the President of the United States 444 years from now. So that's the co-president, I should say, yes.
I mean, your son's got to kind of like that, being a music fan.
Yeah. I guess maybe in some ways it was, one of those things as a mother of a teenager, or any parent of a teenager knows, where you're like, cool, I got some cool kudos.
That's right.
Because we're so not cool. Actually, cool is not cool.
Yeah, that's the truth. Whatever we think cool, that's not what's cool.
Yes.
Well, Irene, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I'm looking forward to this one for a while. So thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite role that you have played?
That's kind of like asking you a person like who their favorite child is.
It is. I can see.
Yeah. But I mean, because every single project I've worked on, there's something about the project that just deepened me as a person, or taught me something, made me stronger, or I mean, I got to meet so many of the people, and Mary Crow Dog, the people who were there at the siege at Wounded Knee in 1973. So that one was really special to me, I guess. It laid a groundwork for me for the rest of my, my time doing this, of a really grounded and meaningful beginning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that. Is there a genre that you haven't got to do that you would like to try?
A genre? Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I've been doing the horror, and I loved doing my own stunts and car chases and things like that. Some of the projects that I've done, I think it's more that I just, as a producer, I feel like I've gathered so many stories that I want to be told and
Right.
should be told. And as I'm producing too, even if this story, because our history is kind of fraught with some pain and suffering,
Yeah.
even if the story is, in that vein, I always want it to have hope, and it is a beautiful and terrifying life, so I mean, even in the terrifying, to find the beauty, and always finding that balance. And
Yeah.
but I think there's so many incredible stories, and what I would love to do though is comedy.
Yeah, we need to see you in some comedy.
Humor is one of my tribe's, Alaska Native people's values. Like, it's in our tribal, we have to have humor. And I've had, glimpses of it here and there, but I would really love to take a comedy on.
Yeah. We need to make that happen.
Yeah.
I would enjoy that. Do you still get back to Alaska?
I do. It's been a year since I've been there, but
Yeah.
I generally get up there, 2 or 3 times a year and stay for a while and all of that. But, it's been these times.
It's been a little rough. Yeah, it's been a little rough.
Yeah.
So Irene, before I let you go, is there anything else that you have upcoming that we can kind of keep an eye out for?
Oh my goodness. I have, let's see. Heartland is about Standing Rock.
Very good.
Harbinger is a story of good versus evil. And
we always love that.
The Green Veil I was co-producer on, and it's John Leguizamo and John Ortiz. It's a 4-part limited series, and my company also directed the behind the scenes, and we're working on the sister documentary for it right now.
Oh, very nice. What is the Green Veil about? Well,
it's set in the 50s, and it's there was actually it's based on it's based on events, so all the rest of it is fiction, but these events that did happen,
that they happened.
Yes. There was an event in a cornfield and a farm where little green men, that's where they kept saying they saw little green men. And they said later on that they tried to say they were owls. But so it's, this 50s kind of what you think maybe is kind of a kitschy thing about alien abduction, and it really delves into what happened with a lot of the American Indian children being
that sounds like something that sounds like it would be in my wheelhouse, that I would enjoy that. Have you got somewhere for that to show yet?
We're working on that right now. It's going to be somewhere. It's just that we want it to be where we want it to be. So
that's right. That's right.
I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to be really talking about it. I
probably not. That means that when you're able to talk about it, you have to come back.
Right. Yes.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
I would love that.
So last thing before you go, where can we find you on social media?
I got kicked off of Twitter. I don't know why. So
you need me to call somebody.
Because basically, I would tweet things about, like, if I did write something, it was, maybe about the rule of law or building bridges to each other, or things like that.
You would think that would be okay on Twitter?
Heart, butterfly. But I retweeted a lot, and it's part of how I came on Ava DuVernay's radar to be president.
Right.
Yes. So.
Yeah. Okay.
My Facebook also is just at Irene Bedard. or Irene Bedard, and my
Instagram,
Instagram,
maybe? Yeah.
it's also at Irene Bedard. Yeah, it's all at Irene.
Oh, it's easy enough. That's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Well, Irene, this has been the best. And please do, yeah, when you've got something ready to come out, you got to come back.
Okay, I sure will.
We're so close. Maybe we'll bring you down to West Virginia and just do it here at the studio.
I know, I'd love that. And hopefully,
Yes.
I wasn't too opinionated.
No. Yeah, see, you were probably very reserved, and you didn't have to be, because we're
Yeah, that's true. I should have thought of that.
we named it. My son and I named it Too Opinionated, and then we figured out, we're not really that opinionated. Yeah. All right, Irene, hold on one second. All right, so that was Irene Bedard. Big fan of hers. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a fun conversation. She's been in so much for a while now. She's been acting for quite a while. So that was a real treat to get to speak with her. So if you guys haven't already, we would really appreciate it if you could go to our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod, and subscribe. That would really help us out. We're just a father and son podcast. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and we're closing in on 300 episodes, which is difficult. Not too many podcasts get there, so we're pretty proud of it. But we could definitely use some help on the YouTube side. So if you could check that out and subscribe, we would appreciate that. You can also find all 300 episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. It'll let you know what conventions we're going to or covering. It'll let you know if we're doing anything live here at the studio. And there's also a great geeky blog from Brett that I think you guys will really enjoy. So you can check that out. He's such a good writer. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, bye everybody.